I'm ready if you are.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining. We have a really valuable seminar today. It's about keeping your commission, which is it might get harder over the next few months if we have a recession. We'll see whatever happens. But Michael's one of the top trainers in Canada, so I'll let him take it away. And in the meantime, if you want to get the handout, just text me in the chat or email me directly if you like, Kyle@internationalrealtyfirm.com. Or just send me your email in the chat and I'll send you this handout here so you can follow along if you like, or you can just take notes, whatever you like. Okay, take it away, Michael. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with everyone here at International Realty Firm. We have a great group. As Kyle mentioned, it's a very important seminar, how to commission a good agent. You can see this on the screen. As Kyle just mentioned, he's going to email you a copy of this worksheet. I've got a lot to unpack in the next hour as we're going through all the information here. You can take notes and then fill in the worksheet after the fact, or if you have a chance to, you can print it off and just fill it in. I find you learn better if you can just go by the worksheet and fill it in as we go along. Now, we're going to leave questions till the end, if possible. If there's something critical, you can type into chat. Kyle can always flag me to it. But for the next hour, I'm just going to be going through a wealth of information. And then if you can leave your questions to the end, we're giving a full half hour for open discussion, and I can address any point that you might be concerned about. Also, at this stage, I'd like to, having been a director at the RICO Board of Directors for 9 years, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the following legal disclaimer. What we're discussing today is perfectly legal. Okay, there's nothing anti-competitive about it. Commission rates are negotiable. They're not standardized. All different types of business models out there with a full range or an array of different commission structures. We are fully entitled to have a dialogue or discussion about how we defend or corroborate or prove the value of our services and why we're worth the commission that we're charging. And this is the discussion for today. So I just want to get that part out of the way. Now, as I just said, commission rates are negotiable. They're all over the map as to the different fees being charged. But I want to get into numbers to some degree just to illustrate or to showcase different examples. So for the sake of this discussion today, I'm just going to use the working figure of 5%. Now, 5% where you would know as well as I do that it could be 2.5% to the buyer cooperating broker and 2.5% to the listing agent brokerage. And of course, some of you are thinking in your mind, well, sure, I wish I could get 5. Meanwhile, I'm quoting 4% and happy to get that. Well, that's fine, whatever you want to charge. But I have to jump in and showcase using a specific example of a number. I could say 4%, but in this case, I'd like to just share the example of 5 as we go through. And I'm going to address different numbers and how it could be lower, but I have to start somewhere. So let's just work with the working template of 5%. Say the general example of 2.5 to the cooperating broker, 2.5 to the listing brokerage. So with that in mind, let's just start at the top here. And by the way, I'm going to share some language, but you're going to get a copy of that in the email. Okay, the first point where it says a homeowner gets blank and often concludes blank, so why not go with? Here's the example. Let me just illustrate it. Let's say a typical example for the scenario. Let's say I'm just an average consumer. I am a business person working in the private sector. I have a rather affluent position, but I work in private sector. I don't know, as any consumer, much about the real estate industry. Let's say I don't have a relationship with a realtor in particular. And after living in my lovely backsplit in Thornhill for the last 14 years, now I'm being transferred out to Vancouver for some job promotion. So now it's time for me to sell my principal residence that I've enjoyed for these last, say, 14 years. But I don't have a realtor in particular. So what I do, I as a consumer would tend to do my due diligence and shop different brokerages, different brands, and select a realtor. So National Association of Realtor, the biggest organization in the world, has stated over the many years that in general, in that context, if a homeowner doesn't have a specific relationship with a realtor, a real estate practitioner, and they're shopping different brands to pick one, they tend to talk to about 3 on average. They talk to several. Now, it could be that in some cases, some homeowners could be very easygoing and lackadaisical, laid back attitude. They might talk to one company, be suitably impressed, and sign on the dotted line. You've got other homeowners that are so cynical and exacting and from Missouri that they want to talk to 6 different companies, but the median average tends to be several, say 3. So let's say this is the context in this scenario that I, the homeowner, I'm talking to, say, 3 different companies. So I'm talking to Royal LePage, Remax, International Realty Firm. So I'm talking to a cross section of these different companies. So my subjective perception as a consumer, as the homeowner, I talk to the first realtor, listen to their presentation, outline the commission. Then the next night I have another realtor come in from the other brand. They outline their different services and fee. And then later that week, I talk to the third and final realtor of the 3. And after my interviewing, my due diligence research, I, the consumer, with very limited knowledge of real estate as an industry, as a profession, after cutting my teeth on talking to the 3 different representatives from different brands in the same industry, very often the homeowner, myself in this case, would come to the conclusion, I get the 3 opinions, and I often conclude that I think that you're all the same. So if I, as a would-be client, as the consumer, your next possible client you're trying to get your hands on, if I subjectively perceive that I think you're all basically the same, all variations on the same theme, then the blunt, brutal punchline is, well, then why shouldn't I go with the cheapest bidder? Now, you see, the challenge there is that it almost makes a degree of twisted sense. That if they think, well, in this service profession, this industry, they're all basically the same, all cut from the same cloth, why shouldn't I go with the cheapest bidder? So it almost makes a degree of sense, but it begs the question, are some real estate practitioners more effective and more proficient than others and provide better service? Well, of course, that's true. That means that this consumer I just described is proceeding from a false assumption. And there's nothing worse in this life than proceeding from a false assumption. And it's up to us to distinguish or differentiate ourselves that we are worth the commission that we're charging. Now, you see the next point where it says we make selling real estate. I don't know if we have it up on the screen. Kyle, I don't have it up on the screen, but maybe we can click and get, maybe it's up for the others, but I don't see it. But the next bullet point would be, we make selling real estate look easy, so consumers resent the fee. Now, in the last few years, it's been such a Wild West market, such a frantic pace. It didn't take much skill where really almost even a newbie could just get a listing and put it out on the MLS system, and they practically have to stand on the front lawn with a fire extinguisher to stop the for sale sign from catching fire, and you'd get multiple offers and sell the property in one day for well over asking. So it looked pretty darn easy at that point, and it could almost be debated or argued. But
Kyle,
really,
we have your email on the screen. We don't see the original document.
Yeah, Kyle, if you're there, we need to see the document. I can see it in fine print there in the corner. Now, here's the thing. It's really so interesting that, my God, if you look at any other service profession, I mean, you could talk about doctors, lawyers, I don't care if it's a carpenter, plumber, whatever. I mean, the really good ones, good professionals in each respective industry, I mean, they tend to make it look easy. If I go to see a doctor or lawyer or anybody else in a service profession, I want it to come across in a seamless, professional, proficient manner. I don't want to look as if they're stumbling around and having a challenge with it and a lot of headaches involved in the process. I mean, really, it's a blessing if you can make the process seamless and make it seem easy for the client. That's the whole idea. Our objective as a listing agent is to get top dollar maximum value for their property in a reasonable time frame with the fewest headaches involved. That's the main thrust of it. Our job as a real estate professional being hired as the listing agent is to get the maximum value for the property in a reasonable time frame with the fewest headaches involved in the process. So any true professional, any industry should make it look easy. That's almost a given. Now, you see the next point where it says, however, over the years, and if you think back about 20 years ago, I don't know how many of you were in the profession 20 years ago, but or even as a consumer, you probably perceived or saw this. Not that commission rates are standardized, they're not, but generally speaking, about 20 years ago or so, if you asked any member of the public in around Greater Toronto area, what percentage do you tend to think it costs to sell a house through a realtor? And a lot of people would say, oh, I don't know, isn't it around 6%? Now, 20, 25 years ago, 6% was bandied around as a common figure, saying that would seem to be the going rate or in that ballpark. And even back then, you could have different rates because they're not standardized. But people would guesstimate around 6%. Now, when they say about, gee, we're making so much money, don't forget, our industry has taken the hit already over these last number of many years, that it's gone from 6%. Now, current day, in the last 5-6 years, if you talk to anybody in the consumer public, what would you say is a ballpark amount percentage for selling your property through a realtor? A lot of them would say, well, I hear 5%. So the ubiquitous 6% that was around a couple of decades ago is now the common percentage that you hear from people would be, oh, around 5%. And of course, I was saying, I hear you, well, you can get it for 4 if you really shop around and all the rest of it. But the ballpark generalization would be 5%. So really, when you think about it, we've already taken a considerable hit. And now, of course, it's starting to erode below 5 and to 4.5%, 4%. So the erosion of it continues, and it's up to us to defend every dollar that we're quoting as our fee for quality service. Now, when you think of an analogy, like other service professions, if it's amazing where people wouldn't dream of going cheap on other services, but they think they can go cheap on a realtor. Why? Because they figure, what's the big deal for selling a house? They have very limited perception of the efforts involved. But if you went to a dentist and you're sitting in the chair and the dentist, he or she gives you an examination, oh, you need a really deep root canal, that'll be $1,600. And you say to the dentist, well, I think that's pretty expensive. And the dentist says, okay, I'll do it for $900. Would you stay in the chair? I sure wouldn't. So, just like a lawyer, if you were charged with some criminal offense, whether it's valid or not, but you're fighting for your very liberty and it's so important to you, would you shop around legal aid and nickel and dime the lawyer, or would you piece together every penny you've got and get the best lawyer money could buy to address the charges because you want to vanquish and get rid of this huge stress in your life? So things like this, people are quite happy to pay whatever is needed for the best quality expertise. But when it comes to real estate, they think they can play fast and loose with it. Now, here, when you see the pie chart, here's what we're talking about. Some of you might have heard of this over the years, although I think it's fairly new to most people. I'm just going to draw this. So here would be a pie chart where I just draw a circle with a line in it. And then I'm going to and the way I'm writing this spontaneously, the reason I don't have it pre-printed to prepare for you is that the way I'm describing it to you right now on this webinar is exactly how you would describe it sitting at a kitchen table. If you're sitting at the kitchen table and they're saying, well, you lower your commission and all the rest of it, then you just take out a blank legal pad and you just scribble it extemporaneously the way I'm doing this right now. So hopefully you can see what I'm holding up, where it is just a circle with a line in the middle, and you can see it's 2.5, 2.5. And here's how you describe it. I'll go through this twice to make sure you get it. You're saying, Mr. Mrs. Seller, you're asking about wanting to reduce the commission. Well, just if I can take a moment, I'd like to explain to you about, okay, I think I've lost the image of me. Okay, there it is up here. I'd like to take a moment and explain just how the breakdown of how the commission structure works. And then you draw this on this piece of paper for them, saying, let's just look at this as a pie chart where there are the two halves to it. We're talking about the 5% marketing fee, where it's 2.5, half of it would go to the listing brokerage and the other half goes to the cooperating brokers. Now, and at this point, you write in at the bottom a number of 2.5s, saying, now, as far as for the half for the buyer agencies, all the realtors out there with the buyers looking at properties on MLS, we find it's most effective that if the other properties on MLS are out at 2.5 for compensation, then we want to be on equal footing as far as for what we're offering for compensation to the buyer agents. So if they're all at 2.5, then it would make perfect sense that we would want to be at 2.5 as well to be in that competitive realm of the buyer agents looking at these properties. So they don't seem to argue with this part. It seems like most consumers can fully understand that the part going to the buyer agent is not going to be touched. They want you to take it on the chin on this part here on the top part. You say, now, as far as the remaining other part, the other half, the 2.5, it breaks down into 3 factions. You say, you've got this portion that would be going to our brokerage for their fee for providing the service to you, the consumer, in the first place. This portion here is for the marketing for your property, especially with this type of market that we're currently challenged with. And the other portion is for my paycheck for successfully bringing you an offer with a price that you're happy with. So as far as for compensating the business model of the company, the marketing fee or the marketing costs involved in marketing your property that are involved, and then my portion for the paycheck on a price you're happy with. I'm just curious, which part are you talking about cutting? Now, when you ask that last part as a punchline, you go up about a full octave, almost quizzically. You're saying, if we're talking about, now don't say they're equal, just say these 3 factions, one to the brokerage for providing the service to you, the consumer. This other portion is for funds for marketing the property. Don't get into a breakdown of the amounts. And saying this other portion here is for my paycheck for you being happy with the price I bring you, that you're happy with what you net in your pocket. And you say, which one are you talking about cutting? And it's a little bit hard for them when they're put in that spot. They say, well, they're not even sure which one to try to pick from. You say, if anything, in this current market, where it's a little slower, it takes longer on market and get the attention of the buyer agents, we've got a wonderful marketing strategy where what we do is, instead of the 5%, we go out we have a 6% program where we still just take 2.5 on the listing brokerage end, but we offer 3.5% to all the buyer agents. Now think about it, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if you were a commission agent with a good qualified buyer and you're looking at all these properties here at 2.5% on MLS, and you as a commission agent see that you can get a bonus paycheck of 3.5% for successfully selling this property compared to the 2.5s. Do you see how that would get a lot of realtors' attention, creating an auction-like effect of them being attracted and gravitating towards our property, thereby giving us more qualified showings and possibly creating a multiple offer situation? If possible, we could do that, and achieving you a higher sale price that more than offsets the 1% bonus that we're offering to the buyer agent. Do you see how this is an effective marketing strategy? Now, the typical consumer will probably say, well, I can see how that makes sense, but I'm not comfortable with the 6% idea. And you say, well, then that's fine. Then we just leave it at 5% as I originally outlined, and you still get all the services as I outlined. Does that sound fair? And the average consumer is just wiping their brow and saying, well, thank goodness it's back to 5. Now, this is known as overcompensating to bring it back where you want to go. You originally mapped out 5%. They were taking a little umbrage to that. And then you map out the pie chart, breaking it into 2 halves, 2.5, 2.5. You say this has to be offered to the buyer agents on this part. Yes, this is 3 factions to it. And you explain the breakdown and how could we possibly chop any of the 3. And then you tag on the punchline. If anything, here's an effective marketing strategy. We go out at 6%. We still, of course, just generously just take 2.5 on our end, the listing brokerage, but we offer 3.5. Now it's interesting. According to the Competition Bureau, you can't infer or imply about lower commissions and how properties would be ostracized. But we're perfectly within our legal rights to point out how a bonus commission will draw attention. Now, we can say, you've seen many times over the years in our industry where you get listings during a slow market saying, if you bring a successful offer, we sell this by December the 15th, there's a $5,000 bonus. Bonuses are perfectly legal to offer as an inducement to draw attention towards it. And most consumers, if they see what a bonus will do, they quickly can infer or understand in their mind what the other side of the coin is, but we didn't even draw a reference to it. So you're saying 3.5 to the buyer agent, and of course 2.5 to us. Do you see how this way we'll get more qualified showings, auction-like activity on our property? Possibly, don't say you're going to create a multiple offer, say possibly maybe creating a multiple offer situation, generating people competing against each other, and thereby netting us a higher sale price. Do you see? And then the tie down at the end is where you say, do you see how this is an effective marketing strategy? And typically they don't go for the 6% unless they're really highly motivated to say, well, it makes sense, but I don't know, I'm not comfortable with that type of range. You say, well, then let's just go back to our 5% program. You still get all the services of outline and we'll sell your house for maximum value. And they, shall we get started? And then they're just happy that you overreach for that. They felt out of their comfort zone. You bring it back to the comfort zone of where 5 seems a little more palatable, and they're willing to probably maybe go for that. The reason you're showing them on a piece of paper the way I'm showing you is that they have proven, psychologists have proven, that if you show anybody anything in writing, it is 73% more convincing psychologically compared to if you just told them that whole thing verbally, they couldn't understand it. But if you just scribble it out on a pad, the way you just saw me do this in a spontaneous fashion, and they can actually visually look at the pie chart while you're explaining it, it is 73% more convincing psychologically than if you just told them verbally. And every time I share with an audience that anything that a decision maker sees in writing is 73% more convincing psychologically, I write the 73% on a piece of paper to prove my point. Okay, so now that's where underneath where you see the word bonus, back to the chart, it says bonus marketing plan. So next to pie chart, you would write in, you would draw in that little circle, but underneath that you see the words pie chart, and you write in that little diagram. Then under that bonus blank is marketing plan, 6% versus 5%, create an auction effect. Sorry, it should be an E instead of A for it, but auction effect. Okay, now I'm going to share a piece of language with you that you would use at the kitchen table if you're on a listing appointment and you're outlining your commission structure, and they're saying, well, we're thinking of going with a brokerage that'll do it for less commission. We've got a company that'll do it for less commission. Will you do it for less commission? Here's a piece of language that I wrote out years ago. It's in my book. I get nice feedback from everybody. I ran the language past a top array instructor many years ago. I said, is this legal? And he read the text and he winced a bit. He said, well, yeah, you're pushing the envelope, but yeah, it's legal as long as you say it exactly like that, but don't change anything. I said, no. So this is predicated on you making sure you don't change what is said. Now you're going to get this full text. You can see it there. Okay, but you're going to receive this. I think Kyle is sending it out as we're having this lecture today. You're at the kitchen table. You're talking to them eyeball to eyeball, chatting about your services. They say, well, we're thinking of going with ABC. They'll do it for less commission. So without even looking at this, because you go through the effort of memorizing it. Okay, so you're just saying, basically, in essence, you're saying to them, now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I understand why you feel this way about the commission. And you are correct with your observation. Commission rates are negotiable. They're not standardized. I mean, right there, talk about your acknowledging opener is not even dodging or trying to sidestep the objection. You're flat out addressing it. You're saying, I understand, empathetic, why you feel this way about the commission. And you are correct with your observation that commission rates are negotiable. They're not standardized. And I'm not trying to fault that realtor in particular. Now look, I'm looking straight at the camera here. I'm not reading this. This is just pre-memorized. I'm not faulting that realtor or that company in particular. But when you think about it, if any realtor is so willing to slash their own income right up front, what do you think they're doing with your asking price when they're out there negotiating on your behalf, may I ask? You see, when you think about it, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, my commission rate that I'm quoting to you is academic. Because unless I accomplish my task and bring you an offer where you've allowed for my commission rate and you net the amount you want in your pocket, you don't have to accept the offer and you don't have to pay me a red cent. It's all based on performance. So really, in essence, then when you think about it, I'm the one taking most of the risk, because once you give me the go-ahead to get started, I'm the one doing all the advertising, the promotion, the pamphlet, the open housing. And unless I accomplish my task, especially during these current market conditions, unless I accomplish my task and bring you an offer where you're fully in control and you have to allow for the commission rate. And unless you get what you want net in your pocket, you don't have to accept the offer and I don't get paid. And I'm not in the habit of working this hard not to be paid. And besides, when all is said and done, I pride myself, I'm worth the commission I'm quoting to you, because I pride myself on being a top negotiator, and I'm going to look after your vested interests at the offer table and get you the maximum value. Do you see how it's in your best interest to have someone like me look after your marketing needs or your selling needs? So that's it in essence. That's the gist of it. So when you see on your chart, it gives you the acronym SARW. So those are the power words where you're saying, I understand how you feel that way about the commission. Now you must put in the disclaimer. I'm not faulting that company you just mentioned or that realtor in particular. So you put in that disclaimer, then you make a general observation saying, but when you think about it, I mean, in real estate sales, if any realtor, and you can almost a little sneer on your nose there, you say, if any realtor is so willing to slash, and you can make a power motion with your hand, but you say, is so willing to slash their own income right up front, what do you think they're doing? And you point right at them. What do you think they're doing with your asking price when they're out there negotiating? You point your thumb over your shoulder. When they're out there negotiating on your behalf, may I ask? So in other words, once you're they're out of your sight, and if they've given up their own paycheck and acquiesced and capitulated on their own paycheck, I mean, how are they prepared to defend your asking price? What do you think's happening in that case? So you let them draw their own inference on that. So there's the S of the SARW. If they're so willing to slash is the power word. The next power word is academic. You're saying, besides, my commission rate, when you think about it, is academic, because unless I accomplish my task, and look at it, this market these days, it is a task. Unless I accomplish my task and bring you an offer where you've allowed denotes that they're masterfully in control. You're the servant. You're in a subservient position. You have to allow this to happen. So unless I bring you an offer where you've allowed for the commission and you net what you want in your pocket, the amount you want in your pocket, you don't have to accept the offer. You don't have to pay me a dime. It's all based on performance. So that's a nice assurance. So the A is academic. The R is, so in essence, when you think about it, I'm the one taking most of the risk. Don't say all the risk, because that's not true. You say, I'm the one taking most of the risk, because once you give me the go ahead and I get started, I'm the one doing all, you could list off in random order all the different things you're doing. I'm doing all the marketing, the social media, the promotion, the pamphleting, doing the open housing, all the inquiries. Unless I accomplish my task and bring you that offer with the amount you want, you won't be accepting the offer and I don't get paid. You pause a full beat at that point to let the whole statement sink in. And then you punchline it by saying, and I'm not in the habit of working this hard not to be paid. And then the punchline at the end is the W. You're saying, besides, when all is said and done, I'm worth the commission rate. I'm quoting to you because I pride myself on being a top negotiator. And I'll tell you something, if you can rattle all this off in a professional manner, they'll probably think to themselves, boy, I bet you she is a pretty good negotiator. She sounds really good for the communication skills. You're saying, I pride myself on being a top negotiator, and I'm going to look after your vested interests at the offer table to make sure we get you maximum value for your property. Then the little tie down, do you see how you're best served by having someone like me in your corner or any other tie down of that ilk? But you must ask a little tie down at the end, compelling them to give you an agreement back. It comes across as assertive in tone, but don't worry, if you do it with the right tone of empathy, it comes across as quietly assertive, like in an understated consultative fashion. It doesn't come across as too aggressive. You're just saying, do you see how it's in your best interest to have someone like me looking after your needs? Anything along that line, but you're compelling them with a little tie-down question to give you an affirmation or an answer. And if they still debate or argue, then you continue the discussion. Or if they say, well, yeah, okay, I guess you could do a good job, then that means you've got the listing. Please be careful with this language, though. I taught it to a group of agents up in Thornhill a number of years ago. And I'll always remember, it was during a boot camp where we met every morning to see how appointments went the night before. So we had them practice the language about the commission, SARW, until they knew it by heart. And then the next morning, we're having a meeting, and the one agent came in, and she was a little embarrassed. She said, well, I talked to a for sale by owner last night, and we were debating about the commission. And I went through SARW, but I got a little mixed up at the end. And I said / academic risk. But when I got to the W part, I misspoke. I said, besides, when all is said and done, I'm worth the extra commission. She put the word extra in instinctively for some reason. Well, as soon as he heard the phrase extra commission, he very firmly just ushered her out the door. He wasn't happy with that phrase that he heard. So please be careful. You're not worth the extra commission. You're worth the commission. Do you see how I can look after your needs at the offer table? So please keep that in mind. And I'll assure you, my memory is no better than yours. If I can go through the practice like an actor learning a script of just memorizing that piece of lingo, then don't worry, you can, once you have the printed sheet is emailed to you after today's discussion, if you just want to practice it and go over it a number of times like an actor learning a script, reading it out loud as if you're practicing a script. Read it out loud with the words passing your lips, role play with a friend, colleague, cohort, spouse, it doesn't matter, even looking in the mirror, but just reading it out loud. Now, don't worry, if you read it out loud a number of times, you'll internalize it to the point of, for your memory, that then when you're on an appointment, I've heard countless times from people through training sessions, they say, no, I was worried I'd sound rehearsed or canned, but no, actually when the time came, I just found that by pre-memorizing it, the gist of it, the basic logic of it came out, even my own semantics couching it, but the gist of it, the main thrust of it was there for the logic, and it got the point across. So if you could just internalize that, that's a nice piece of language for countering the dreaded commission argument. Without giving names, I was the closing speaker at a big consortium for a very popular big brand in central Toronto. They were having a big event, and I got there a little early, because I was the last person to speak, and I'm in the back of the room and I'm hearing their panel discussion, a bunch of their top agents talking about how to deal with the commission argument. Just to assure you, there were people in that panel that make a lot of money. And when they were talking to their colleagues in the room at this big event about what they say about the commission argument, it was very grassroots. So if you're thinking, oh, everybody's saying the same thing, no, these people have been around for years and they're just coming up with the old rhetoric about, well, you get what you pay for and all the rest of it. And I'm saying, you've got to come across with a bit more finesse than that. Your logic or your campaign should be that, as I said a moment ago, the whole flavor of how you come across in the interaction back and forth in this discussion, this business discussion, you very much want to come across in a low-key, understated, non-threatening, consultative manner. So if you go to see a doctor or lawyer, say your doctor, I mean, when she's talking to you, she says, well, based on what we've done for tests, here are your options. And then very pragmatically and no nonsense, just say, here are your options. So just like us, we as a real estate practitioner, we assess the situation, and then we will give advice in a very practical, empathetic manner, saying, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, based on your circumstances, here are your options, or here's my best suggestion for a campaign. And you just matter-of-factly rattle it all off in an empathetic but professional tone. So that's a nice way to approach it. So please, when you get the language, try to maybe practice it a bit. Now, your two strengths, you see down on the sheet, it says two strengths. The two strengths that are effective is your marketing skills and marketing the property. And then the second part, just as important, is your negotiation skills at the offer when the offer comes in. Those go a long way to corroborate or substantiate why you're worth the commission schedule that you're charging. A lot of realtors take some Mickey Mouse courses at the colleges. They learn a lot of academia that has no practical application. They hang their shingle out, open their doors for business, and they don't really have any practical sales skills. Now, during a hectic market where properties were selling, anybody could sell a property, but during any balanced market or a challenging, slower market like we're currently going through, as Kyle mentioned, well, marketing is really a key factor for getting more exposure on the property. The simple logic is, you're saying to them, in essence, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, would you agree that the more exposure you get when you're selling any item or property, the more exposure you get on selling something, the higher sale price you're going to get for it. So in tandem with more or maximum exposure will give you more qualified showings. And then after the qualified showings, an offer comes in with that buyer agent trying to get the best terms. Then the second part of the equation is your keen skills, your professional skills as a negotiator come to play, where you've gotten more qualified showings, then an offer comes in, then your skill as an effective, consummate negotiator comes in to wrestle to the ground top dollar amount that more than offsets the amount that you're quoting for the commission. When we get to the latter part of this, I'm going to share with you what top agents do in their listing presentation. They don't like the fact that I reveal this to everybody, but I'll tell you, during a challenging market, I'll reveal to you how they're getting more listings. Okay, so you see the quote at the bottom of page 1. See the quotations marks around it. When you're sitting there chatting with them and they're debating about the commission, you're saying, in essence, well, what's more important to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, the amount that you pay in commission or the amount you actually net in your pocket? Now, that's a very good distinction. What's more important to you, Mr. Seller, the amount you pay in commission or the amount you actually net in your pocket? So it puts them into a corner. They basically have to say, well, I guess fundamentally it's what I get in my pocket, but I'm still looking for a deal. And they're going to rail at this and try to debate and argue it. That's understandable. I've been licensed all these years. I understand the little foibles that you're running into when you're at the table. Okay, so next point. Oh, actually, Kyle, if you could just scroll down, I just want them to see the language I just shared for a moment, just down at the bottom. Kyle's just going to show you, and you're going to get this sent to you, where the third page is the language that we just shared. And as you just give a quick read, you can see for / academic risk, it's pretty much verbatim what I was rattling off. I know it's a mouthful and it looks like a lot to memorize, but if you read it out loud over and over again, about 15, 17, 20 times, you'll know it for life. And then you can pick and choose just different bits of it that you want to use in any specific circumstance. Okay, thanks, Carl. Okay, now, here's a little irony about our commission industry or commission business. The more successful you are, the more you can resist cutting. If you're really up and running with a full head of steam and your little real estate sole proprietorship under the auspices of this wonderful Brokerage international realty firm, but you as a real estate entity are just moving along like a well-oiled machine, and you have a host of systems and you're consistent with it, and you're getting a wave of lead generation and you're closing transactions, and you've really got a good amount of income stream coming in. That's where, from a position of strength, when you go on a listing appointment and say, well, you cut the commission, not coming across as arrogant or cocky, but you can just come across with a sense of self-assuredness of just saying, you know, the answer is no, next question, because you can afford to just take any one hit and go on to the next of your many leads. It's funny though, when you're desperate, of course, and they can see you sweat and they can smell the desperation, then it's like a dog with a bone. They're going to go right for the jugular. And it's pretty interesting that the more successful you become or that you are, the more you can resist cutting the fee that you're quoting. Now, the next point there where it says a client wants a deal because they are doing maybe 3 deals with you. Now, we've all run into a circumstance, or you will run into it, where a trusted client will say, well, look, I'm coming to you and selling my property, and I'm sending my sister-in-law to you. She's buying a condo downtown, and my daughter, you know, she'll be buying soon. So we know in the next few months you're going to get, you know, 3 transactions from this. So you know, can you give us a deal on it? Now, you valuing this client, and you're getting several lumps of commission from it. You know, you don't live in a fool's world or rose-colored glasses. If you want to offer a concession, you can offer them a deal. But please, just for any of you newbies listening, if you instinctively hear that you might be getting 3 lumps of commission coming in the door to you, so you don't mind compromising on one of them to, say, feather your nest and just be generous in nature to show as a thank you, that's fine. But always make sure that you make it that clear that it's going to be on the last deal. You say, I appreciate the business. Here's my best suggestion. We'll do the first 2 transactions at my regular commission schedule, and I will give you the special deal of the rebate on the 3rd of the 3 deals. And you can give them a little side agreement in writing saying, based on 2 other transactions taking place by a certain time frame, I will offer you the following beneficial reduction or rebate on the 3rd deal. So if you're instinctively going to get hopefully 3 in the door, you always give the deal at the end of the cluster of deals. Never be over generous and give the deal up front on the first deal, because remarkably, magically, the other 2 deals never seem to appear and you've taken a horrible hit. So just say, no, if we're getting the 3 pieces of business, I appreciate your business. Here is what I'm willing to do on your behalf. And say, we'll do it at the regular schedule for the first 2, and then I will put in writing that I'll give you the special deal on the 3rd. Does that sound fair? And you're offering them the deal, and they say, does it sound fair? Well, of course it sounds fair. They do get the deal that they're asking about. In this way, if you say, out of the 3 deals, I'll give it to you on the last one of the 3 by this time frame, they will stay fiercely loyal with you for the full brunt of the time, because they can't wait for the payoff of the 3rd deal. They're not going to betray you and go with somebody else, because they want that beneficial payoff of the 3rd and final deal. So it's a nice way to compel or force loyalty from them. Okay, the next point. If you're sitting at the kitchen table talking to them about the commission, and you feel that you've exhausted a lot of avenues or every avenue, and you feel that you want to say reduce or give them a reduction, then we always tend to, in real estate, think in percentages. We always think, well, I'm looking for 5. Oh, they're really hard-nosed. I want the business. Oh, I'll sell it in no time. Okay, I'll do it for 4. Well, to arbitrarily go from 5 to 4, which we tend to think in percentages, so we instinctively go down 1 as an example, that's a lot of money. So say the average median sale price is 1.4 million. You've just rebated back and given up $14,000. So instead of that, if you want to make a concession and allow them a symbolic victory, that they feel that they wrestled you to your knees, you say, okay, I want to work for you. I'm confident I can get you a top dollar amount. You give me the go ahead tonight, and I will reduce, it's 2.5, say, to the cooperating broker, but instead of the 2.5 on our end, we'll 2.5 minus $5,000. I'll take $5,000 off my own paycheck. You say, does that sound fair? Or, you know, how does that sound to you? And most people, if they say, oh, I got $5,000 out of them, then they greedily would say, okay, that's good. And then you've got the concession made, they agree to it, and you write up the listing, and you do your little commission agreement or scribble it right in, 5% minus $5,000 off the listing brokerage end. And you've just saved yourself, I mean, what, $9,000 from 14,000, and you gave up 5, or you could say 7, and you've just saved yourself 7,000. So you've just paid for you and your spouse to go to Hawaii for 2 weeks in just one breath of a statement. You just said, okay, I will make the following concession because I want your business, but this is contingent on you giving me the go ahead tonight to complete the paperwork. I'll reduce my paycheck by $5,000, leaving it still 2.5 for the other end. Does that sound fair? And that way you've saved yourself a chunk of money by talking in dollar amounts compared to percentages. Now, the David Knox example. David Knox is a top speaker in the US. He's always at NAR every year. And he's got a great video, Pricing a House to Sell, that's meant for your sellers to watch. There's a great video that you can get from him where you show it to them up front, and it explains very pragmatically why they should price dead on the money for their house on MLS before they go out. And that's a good piece of visual ammunition. But I was at NAR years ago when David Knox was talking about the commission objection. And a very simple grassroots approach. He's saying that you're at the house, you're talking about your services, you outline your commission, and they're saying, well, this other company will do it for less. And then David Knox simply just said to them, well, let me just ask you something, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. The other person you talked to, myself, we're in this service profession. It's all based on results and performance. If you take the commission part of it and you just put that aside and you just look at our services in this service profession and you think about the services from that other individual, and then you see the services I've just outlined to you, if commission wasn't a factor for you as a consumer, which list of services do you feel would serve you best? The person you talked to the other night or the services I've just outlined to you? Which would you prefer having in your corner representing your needs? And human nature, I mean, if they say, well, we like the other guy better, you're in trouble anyway. But if they say to you, this is why they brought up about the commission, because they might be tempted to go with you. They say, well, we like your services. They say, well, thank you for that feedback. I appreciate that. Now, think of it as a consumer, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. And any of us, myself as a consumer, any of us as a consumer of the public, when you look at any industry or any service profession, and you see that in that service profession, you're wondering which one provides better quality service, and your instincts tell you that this one company provides better quality service than the other. Do you not see then that for just commerce and in fairness in the open market, that probably there's a different fee structure for the better quality service compared to just like you get a better lawyer or doctor, et cetera, compared to this one? Do you see how you recognize the value of it? That's why it's worth it, because it provides better quality service. So you've just mentioned you like my service better. Do you see it's all based on a different commission structure? But don't forget, you're fully in control. You have to be happy with the result of what I bring for an offer. If you don't get a price in front of you that you're happy with allowing from what I've outlined, you don't have, nobody's going to twist your arm. Nobody's going to force you at all. There's no pressure. Either you like it or you don't. And if you don't like what I finally bring to you for a final sale price, you don't have to accept anything. You don't have to pay a penny to me. It's all based on performance. Do you see how you have to be happy before I would get paid anyway? So the Knox example is, if you like my service and that service, let's remove commission for a moment. Which one do you like better fundamentally, instinctively, without commission being a factor? Well, I like yours. Well, that doesn't make sense for the consumers at large, any of us, that if we like one service over another, it tends to be a different compensation factor based on obviously results. And this is why people find it's worth it, and you're fully in control because you don't have to accept it unless you're happy. So that's a nice way of phrasing it. Now, your objective, where it says your objective, is to get the most money, as you've been hearing me emphasize in our discussion this morning. Your objective is to get the most money for your seller. Really, how long it takes is irrelevant. Okay, when they say, well, it sold in 4 days, I mean, for, over asking, boy, that was easy money. Well, no, think about it. I mean, the amount of time it took to get a result that they're thrilled with is irrelevant. I mean, back during the heyday where during the wild market, things were selling so fast and multiples and going for considerably over asking, nobody was complaining at that point. But the analogy that comes to mind is, look in professional sports, look at boxing. In boxing, the two opponents in the ring have, say, 10 rounds to vanquish their opponent, to win the purse, the money, the prize. Well, in professional boxing, the bell rings, and if in the first round, if the one opponent knocks out the other opponent, do they get any less of a purse? And the answer is no. They get the full purse, the full reward. So, but they had 10 rounds to accomplish it. So when they're saying, especially during this slower market right now, where things are a bit more challenging, when they say, well, gee, you sold it in a timely fashion, but I mean, that seemed pretty fast. I'm paying all this money. You say, well, based on current market conditions, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, average days on market with the Toronto Real Estate Board would be 28 days. We sold it in 11. Really, when you think about it, it's such a stressful, challenging environment when you're selling your property. You have to keep the property always clean for last minute showings. You get some canceled appointments, you get jerked around for your schedule. We're basically walking on eggshells for me to sell it in a timely fashion for a price that you're very happy with by your own acknowledgement. Where less stress and headaches involved in the process. Really, I mean, when you think about it, I think I deserve a bonus, but we'll just leave it at the 5%. And obviously everyone seems happy with the whole result. Now, I'm being a little facetious to overstate it to make a point, but the idea being that, when you get to, like it says there, boxer, doctor, lawyer. I mean, do you want it to be a slow, arduous, painful, difficult process? No, if I go to see a doctor, a lawyer, or any service profession, I want it, as I said earlier, seamless, professional, no nonsense, hopefully have a very quick solution. If I had some matter legally and the lawyer, I went to a top lawyer in Toronto and she said, I know a certain precedent here. Instead of going to court and taking months, I can make this whole thing go away in 72 hours, but my fee is $30,000. I'll say, well, where you been all my life? Let's just get rid of this thing. I'd see it being worth every penny, that if I could have less stress and sleepless nights by having some top expert wave a magic wand and make it all go away. Well, same thing. If you come in and pull a rabbit out of your hat and get a nice top sale price, I think you certainly deserve top marks for that. Now, you see the next line down where it says blank marketing plans. And then under that, it says BSG. This is a strategy I've seen a number of agents use. I know one agent in Forest Hill. He makes $900,000 a year, and this is exactly what he does. So if it works in Forest Hill and then through Chaplin Estates, believe me, they're pretty sophisticated clientele consumers in that market area. So this will bode well for anywhere you want to work around GTA. So some Sharpies here watching this today might guess what the BSG represents. It's the Olympics analogy where it stands for bronze, silver, gold. So bronze, silver, gold. So 3 marketing plans up above where it says blank marketing plans. You say to them at the kitchen table, and you have to be prepared to show it or to showcase it. You're saying, Mr. Miss Seller, I have 3 different marketing plans based on the circumstance, and I'd like to outline them for you. And then you outline the bronze plan, which is very basic, on MLS, maybe a virtual tour and a couple of open houses. And you say, that's 4.5%. Then I've got my silver plan, which seems most popular with most of clientele, and then you mentioned everything about MLS, virtual tour, promotion, social media campaign, and you rattle off all the bells and whistles of full service that you normally would for the silver campaign, and you say that's 5%. Then I've got the next one, my gold standard campaign, which some people in special circumstances need, but usually most people like the silver one, but gold. And then you rattle off everything about gold being all the bells and whistles, practically having unicorns on the front lawn with balloons over the house. But you're overstating it, but you just add all the bells and whistles and say that's 5.5. So the bronze is 4.5, silver is 5%, and gold is 5.5. Tell me, out of what I've outlined here, which package do you feel would best serve your needs for getting you the value that you want? And it's like a shell game. By offering the 3 different options, they feel, the consumer, the seller feels masterfully in control because they get to choose, but they're only getting to pick what you're offering. So you stack the deck by saying bronze, silver, gold, and you've gently emphasized that silver is the most popular because it's most comprehensive for the value point. And they instinctively say, well, I think silver would suit our needs. And you walk out with a 5% MLS, having promised a full service, which you'd be glad to on any given day anyway. And bronze was bare bones. Gold is over the top extravagance. And you wanted them to pick silver, and they feel they shied away from 5.5, and they were willing to settle in the median point of 5%, which is what you wanted all along. There's nothing deceptive or underhanded about it. You're just saying bronze, silver, gold. Silver seems to be the most comprehensive for most consumers' needs. Which would you prefer? And they instinctively, human nature, say, well, yeah, silver seems to address it. Oh, say, oh, and then you assure them, say, oh, no, actually, most of my clients are very happy with the silver, and we always achieve a good maximum value. And if they say, well, why would anybody pick gold? You say, well, people in certain circumstances, they're under a lot of stress and highly motivated, and it's a rather dire circumstance where they want to sell it by yesterday. Then we have to pull out extra stops, but you don't need it in this case. I'm sure the 5% silver campaign, that model will do you very nicely. Let's complete the paperwork. Okay, now, the next little bracket underneath where it says a blank agreement. So if you're at the kitchen table and you're talking about 5% and you're going back and forth and you feel these people are highly motivated and you want their business and you've gone through all the language and you feel like you've exhausted pretty much every avenue, and you can tell that you're quoting 5, but they really are locked on 4, then over the years, some have called it a collateral agreement. It's a commission agreement where you say to them, okay, look, I want to work for you on your behalf. I'd like to have your business. You've seen all of my services, the quality service I offer to my clients. Here's my following offer. My standard schedule is 5% for my top quality service. You give me the go ahead tonight, then I will give you the side commission agreement that if I sell it to my own buyer, then I will reduce the whole package of the payment to 4%. Does that sound acceptable? So if you get your own buyer, my own personal buyer, and make the offer conditional for tonight. So you're saying, I want your business. I'm confident I can get you top dollar. My fee, as I quoted, is 5% for my quality service. You give me the go ahead now tonight, and I'll give you a side commission agreement that if I sell it to my own buyer, I'll reduce the entire package to 4%. Does that sound fair? And they hear you quote the 4% statement comes across your lips. So don't forget, before you ever walked in the door that night, the two partners have turned to each other and say, well, these realtors, they're pretty slick. Well, I bet you we can get them to do it for 4. Okay, yeah, I hear they want 5, but no, we'll see what we can get for 4. We've had other people quote 4. So then when they're at the table with you and you're going through every avenue about getting 5, and then you, as a final ace up your sleeve, saying, okay, you give me the go ahead now tonight, and I'll reduce it to 4 if I got my own buyer. They hear you say 4 just coming out of your mouth, even though it's contingent on you getting your own buyer. And if they agree to it and you say for tonight, this offer is only good for tonight, because otherwise they'll say, we'll get back to you, and they're going to shop it around and try to get a better deal. And if they like you or are impressed with you and are leaning in your direction, and they heard 4 out of your mouth contingent on certain conditions, they may just say, yeah, okay, go ahead. And you write it up, and you're quite happy to give a side commission agreement for 4 for your own personal buyer, not for International Realty, but for you, your own personal buyer, that you would reduce it to 4%, because even then that's a great payday. And the odds of you getting your own buyer are slim to none. And then after you leave with the full 5% under your arm and the door closes and you're going out to your car with 5% with the side commission agreement for 4%, which is probably not going to come to pass. As soon as the door closes, the two partners turn to each other and the one partner says, see, I told you I could get her down to 4%. Say, yeah, you're the best, honey. And that's known as a symbolic victory, where they got you to your knees to agree to 4. They heard you say 4. They feel as if they got you to acquiesce and give the 4, but it's on based a very tight, constricted condition that isn't going to come to pass anyway. It's known as a symbolic victory. They feel that they're not left with egg on their face. They got something out of you as a concession, even though the odds of it taking place are slim. And then you've still got a chance to walk out with the full-blown 5%. Okay, now, in a balanced market, okay, this is what the top agents do. I'll make it very clear. I'll go over it a couple of times. I want to make sure that we understand each other. I'll tell you the little secret about our business is that during the hectic Wild West market, nobody really likes the frantic pace of it. Top agents didn't enjoy it when it was a frantic market, because their considerable skill set became negligible, because really most consumers could just hire anybody. They could, not to be cynical, but you could practically hire a trained chimp to put it out on the market, put a sign on, put it on MLS and social media, and boom, you get 11 offers and go way over asking. It didn't take a rocket scientist to sell it for over value, or this top value. So the top agents with a good, credible track record of performance, it went out the window because nobody cared. Now that we're back to a slower, balanced market, let's say slower market, the top agents are drooling at the mouth again because this is their realm that they really enjoy. Because when they sit there at the house doing their listing presentation, it says in a slower market, top agents will show a proven track record of, and here, I'll just write it up for you. Okay. Say my job, you say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, my job is to get you top dollar, reasonable time frame, fewest headaches. Now that's not rhetoric or just language skills. That's a true statement. For all these years gone by, every consumer looking to sell their principal residence want to achieve three fundamentals. They want to, irrespective of who they go with, every consumer wants to get top dollar. Sure, they'd love it if somebody moved here from Vancouver, didn't know prices and overpaid. They'd love it if they overpaid, but everybody selling this asset wants to get maximum value for it. That's a given. Most consumers want it done in a reasonable time frame. They don't want it to take 2 years, and they want it done with the least stress, headaches, hiccups, wrinkles involved in the process. Those are the three dynamics that are fundamental on selling any piece of real estate: top dollar, reasonable time frame, fewest headaches involved in the process. So right here, just hold this up, days on market. They show you, the top agents will show a proven track record where they say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm just showing you the stats from the Toronto Real Estate Board. The average days on market would be 29 days, current market conditions. I have a proven marketing system that my days on market are 12 days. Then the next part they show is list to sell ratio. Where they say the average list to sell ratio on the Toronto Real Estate Board is, say, 97.3% of the asking price. That's what they achieve. My proven marketing system, here are the last 4 sales I had, where my list to sell ratio is 99.4% of asking price. So they say, so if you're looking for someone that can get you the most money in a reasonable time frame and the fewest headaches, do you see how my proven marketing system, and here are my last 4 clients as corroboration, where I sold in less time for more money with less headaches involved in the process. So this way, the seller, looking at the visual campaign right in front of them, now they can't fudge it. It has to be that the top agents are showing their last 3 or 4 clients with the data from Treb showing, here's this listing where I had days on market, sold in 11 days, 99.4% of asking price. Do you see how I have got a proven marketing track record of getting higher sale prices for my clients in less period of time with less headaches involved in the process? Do you see how it's your best interest to have me in your corner? And they love using this visual campaign of evidence of a proven track record during this slower market. So please be aware of this. If you're up against top agents, that's the kind of story they're telling at that property. When you drive by and see their car in the driveway and they're there in person and they're there at that kitchen table, I can assure you, I would bet money that they're telling a story along that circumstance of that flavor. So your job as real estate professionals is to piece together some semblance of a track record that you can lay claim to the same bragging rights and saying, these last 2 clients, here's an example of my proven marketing system. And that's not false statement or hot air. You do have a proven marketing plan by performance, by showing them the last 2 or 3 sales that prove the point, and you can corroborate it. But it takes an effective campaign on your part to get a couple of credentials like that under your belt. Now, you see at the bottom there, you've got to believe that you're worth the commission rate. You've got to believe it. If you don't believe in your heart of hearts that you're actually worth the money that you're quoting or percentage that you're asking for, just on the law of vibration, they're going to twig. The decision makers are going to feel in their gut saying, well, she talks a good story, but I don't know. I don't even know if she believes it herself. Something is coming across in an insincere fashion here. So I'll give you an example. Years ago, well, many years ago now, it was 1989. I was training a group of realtors in North Toronto, a brand new realtors, where it was at a career development center where we trained them for a few months, where they had to learn everything before going back to their respective offices. And this one young agent named Risa, she had been there for about 3.5 months, really struggling. She's brand new, but 3.5 months of business. She'd come to the training center every day, learn the nuts and bolts, go out and apply what she was learning. Well, it took her a while to get going. And then finally, after 3.5 months of arduous effort, trial and error, and a lot of hiccups, suddenly in one 24-hour period, she put together a very sizable deal where she made 20 commission lump of payment of it was something like $24,000. And she sat down with me the next day after the class was over, the training session, and we were just chatting in private. She said, you know, I've got to admit, Mike, I don't know. I mean, I put that deal together in one night, 24 grand. I mean, I don't know. To be candid with you, I don't know if I'm really worth that kind of money. And I said, no, come on, Risa, think about it. You're in a new career. You're serving an apprenticeship right now. You started 3.5 months ago. Just scribble on a piece of paper right now. How many hours were you working per week? This is your first lump of actual income. So in the last 3.5 months, your total number of hours, now finally you get compensation of this one big chunk of money for all the effort and campaign done up until now. If you work it out per hour, what does it work out to per hour? And she scribbled all out. She goes, it works out to about $25 an hour. Oh, she said, well, I'm worth $25 an hour. And I said, well, yes, that's the way you'd have to look at it. And then as you move along now, you've cut your teeth on the hard part and continue along with the momentum you've got. And you're going to be making other lumps of money on a consistent basis. And always factor in that there'll be, peaks and valleys, and you'll hit some snags, and you'll have victories and a lot of defeats, and it all equals out. And when you work it out per hour for effort expended, you can be very comfortable resting your head on your pillow at night that you are providing top quality service. You're a consummate professional, and you're worth every penny. So attitude really is everything. You've got to have that philosophy that you believe that you're worth the value. And that's really a philosophy that you should embrace. Okay, so that's basically the flavor of the different points. And you've been very patient listening to me, and I'm sure there would be a handful of questions. So just opening it up now to questions. Do any of you want to, even with audio, Kyle, I guess I could do it by audio, or did anybody type anything in the chat in the meantime?
Yeah, we have a couple of questions here.
Okay.
So Tanya was asking, are you allowed to say that agents are influenced by commissions, even when RICO rules are saying that we're not, like agents are not, like there's a bylaw, you're not supposed to be influenced by commission, but are we, like, I know it works in my opinion, but.
Well, no, I want to be crystal clear. The one thing I hate would be a misunderstanding. I think I said it pretty clearly, but I'll repeat it. Listen carefully. I don't want anybody misinterpreting this. When we drew that pie chart, and I'm talking about the 2.5s on the cooperating brokers, you just say, well, the majority all on MLS, they all seem to be out at 2.5, so we put ours out at 2.5. You're not even really allowed to imply or infer that a lower commission to the buyer agent would be ostracized or boycotted. They consider that psychological terrorism of consumers. But we didn't do that. We're saying they're all out there at 2.5, so we're going to put ours out at 2.5 to be on equal footing. You say, but an effective marketing strategy would be we can go out at 6% with 3.5 to the buyer agent, and you're perfectly within your rights to offer an added bonus reward inducement to draw more attention to your property. Where it's perfectly legal to offer a bonus reward for if anybody can sell this by, say, if you can sell this place by September 1st, we offer a 10 grand bonus. But no, please, whatever you do, don't infer or imply that the lower figure would be ignored or ostracized. That's completely, that's not allowed.
Right. Yeah. Good point. Good point. It's how you say it and everything. But I do know that strategy works really well. I've done it before on a listing that was not getting much attention. There was, when we listed it, 2 others on the same street, a couple of doors down, also listed theirs. So we used that strategy, and ours was the first one that sold.
Well, what I like about it is that, as I've said clearly, and you just said it yourself, Kyle, to offer a bonus benefit saying, if you can, anybody bring an offer in and sell this property by September 1st, there's a $5,000 bonus or whatever. That's legal, that's ethical, that's acceptable. But I would suggest any consumer out there with enough gray matter between their ears to own a piece of real estate in the first place, if they hear about the bonus reward being effective to get more attention to them, they could draw their own inference what the other side of the coin is, that if it was less, what would happen? But you didn't draw reference to it.
Yeah, especially when there's a timeline involved, then
yeah.
That could just be a completely personal matter for the seller.
And also, as Kyle, your own feedback, as I was going through the different examples, and anytime you make a concession, I was making it clear that you say to the sellers, now this is contingent for tonight that you agree to this, and you don't allow them to shop it around. I would assume you agree with that assertive type of campaign?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, okay. You said there was another question?
Yeah, so this one is from Kathy, and she's asking how to convince buyers to purchase in this market. She's noticed that serious sellers that really need to sell their houses right now are voluntarily ready to pay high commission, especially on multi-million-dollar homes. So she's worried about how to convince the buyers to purchase.
So in this current market where things are slower and some buyers are thinking, of course, that they're waiting for the values to diminish or come down a bit, how can we convince or compel them to take advantage of it? Is that the basic?
So.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, well, think about it. If anybody as a buyer, and let's face it, if they've got enough intelligence to piece together that kind of equity or money to play with to buy in the first place, they have a good pragmatic business sense probably. If a consumer is looking to buy and wants to play around or flip in a year or two, then we're in dangerous waters. But if somebody, like most consumers, is looking to buy for quality of life and live there for the long term, foreseeably for the next 10 years or so, then jumping in now, when things finally, this harshness passes and this market changes and picks up speed again, then in the long term, do you see in the long term how the value would continue upward? And if you're going to live here for a prolonged period of time, it's really almost academic when you jump in. It depends on what your needs is for quality of life. If you want to move now for your family's purposes and move into your next homestead where you're going to live for the next 10 years or so and get on with your quality of life, enjoying your new environment, then it's probably better to take action now while you don't have a lineup of buyers that you're fighting against each other, and you get a house that you like for a price that you can accept. And in the long term, it will inevitably go up.
Exactly, yeah. So he's using like emotion a little bit there. Is it like so saying it's going to be your home for a long time, and then you can justify with logic. There's a chart that shows. You could probably just Google it. There's a chart. I should see if I can find it. But there's a chart that shows all the properties in Toronto Real Estate Board for any 5-year period, even if you bought at the lowest, at the worst possible time when it had spiked to a high insane amount, and then it went down. And then you still over 5 years, it still went up. So like over any 5-year period, Toronto properties have always been appreciating.
Yeah, and that's a fair statement. Just in all fairness, though, I will give an example of my 40 years in real estate. The only time there was an anomaly, and some might remember this, but you're right. Normally there's a blip or there could be a slowing and then it finally picks up again. But the one anomaly to this was back in 1989, where all through the latter part of the 80s, we had this boom market. Prices went up remarkably. And then at the time, I remember clearly, TD Wood-Gundy or whatever made this broadcast saying, grossly overvalued, it's going to drop by 25% for value. And February of 89, you'd almost think that all the buyers in GTA had a town meeting overnight. Suddenly, somebody turned the tap off and the market just came to a complete grinding halt. And from 89 right through into the early 90s, the values kept diminishing, coming down. So if anybody who bought in 88 really took it on the chin, but even it did go down considerably. Then it started to go back up again early mid 90s. So if they lived there for 15 years, they saw it all come back and then gain again. But it's the one time, in all fairness, where if you look at the graph from 89 to about 93, it went down quite a chunk, then started to go back up and continued moving upwards after that ad nauseum on a regular basis. But you're right, though, generally speaking, even this slow lull right now, barring World War III taking place, you'll see where we go through any type of even recession, possibly, and then it would just finally level out, dust settle, the world goes on. Still number one for immigration into Canada. Still everybody wants to own a piece of the rock and buy brick and mortar and stone. They have trust in it compared to other markets that are uncertain. People want to hang their hat and live somewhere and have that to live in. So it bodes well for all the factors being in place for the long term. Yeah,
exactly. So she's saying now buyers think that borrowing money is expensive now. That's why they're holding back. Well, I would show them the news articles on some places. I don't know where this area is they're looking to buy, but in many spots where properties went up really, really quickly the last little while, they've dropped like 21% in the last few months. So you could show them that that's a 21% discount to February, basically. So that's a really good time to buy, unless they think it's going to drop further. But like we just talked about, trying to time the market is like, like we're not trading stocks and stuff here, where it's a house that you're going to live in for potentially 20 years. Or at least 5. So, in the end, I think it's not a terrible time. Interest rates could keep going up, which would probably make values go down a little bit more, but it's probably a lot of fear, and a lot of those interest rate increases are probably already priced into the market. So you could tell them that. There's no guarantees, of course, on anything, but just to make them realize that trying to time the market is not the best way to go. It's always, what's best for you and your family, and where you're going to move to. Also, the International Monetary Fund, they just came out with an article I was just reading that they're predicting Canada to outperform like the United States and other countries for the next couple of years. So that's good news if it comes true. Because the Canadian dollar will go higher, and that's great.
That's true. And also the other factor to keep in mind with what you just said, Kyle, if you look at the big picture, see, everyone right now, currently the consumers, the buyers are saying, oh, the mortgage rates, look at them now. Well, that's because they're hearkening back to just, in the last couple of years where it was dirt cheap for money, and some would argue that it was artificially induced, where the rate should never have been that low in the first place. But that's the sweet zone of where you can get a mortgage back where you get it for 2.5%. Well, if you remove that and look at the big picture, that generally speaking, to get mortgage money for your principal residence, and it's around 5%, give or take, that's a reasonable ballpark. I mean, that's not unwarranted or really that outrageous when you look at the big chart of what mortgage rates have been over many years.
Yeah, exactly. We just had like almost a period of record low rates, like really, really record low, like they're almost going to zero. So that can't be sustained forever. So right now they're still fairly low, and inflation is way higher than what mortgage interest rates are. So, you're still doing okay.
Yeah, and the main thing is it's not a intellectual purchase so much like an investment or a stock trade. You're talking about someone's principal residence, their home and hearth, their castle. If somebody wants to buy and live and actually own the piece of real estate and call it their home for quality of life and satisfaction, owner satisfaction, and they're going to own it for 10, 15 years or longer, moving up to even another big piece of real estate. Really, when you own a piece of real estate, it forces you to save money. It's forcing you to make a payment every month to build the biggest nest egg you're going to have in your lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, the immigration plan for Canada, and especially the GTA, it's like, I think they're planning to have 400,000 immigrants to Canada every year for the next 5 or 10 years, I believe.
And the majority, a good portion of them want to move to Toronto, even compared to Vancouver. Really, Toronto wins at the top of most lists. We've all heard this. Every year, we get voted one of the 10 most livable cities in the world. Yeah. It's really the center of the universe for Canada. It's the financial engine of Canada. Toronto's the most popular for diversity. All the factors are there for Toronto being just a metropolis of commerce and growth, probably for a long time to come.
Yeah, exactly. So the immigration policy is working really, really well for real estate. Obviously, as we could see the track record, especially the GTA, and then with the IMF prediction that Canada is going to outperform countries like the United States, that looks really, really good too. So I think we're in a good spot. Like the whole world is maybe going to go into some kind of a depression, but I think Canada might outperform many, many others. So I think it's still going to be really good purchase for real estate.
And the world picture aside, just this rare opportunity that we're all together as a group, all with the same great company. Anybody watching right now, the audience, other than the commission discussion today, do you want to ask any other question about what you're currently facing? It's a slower market. Some people that have only been in it for a few years have only known a different type of market. So now you're caught a little off guard of wondering what to do. While we're having this chat right now, please, if you have any question about any other dynamic, I'll be glad to address it.
Can I come back to the same question where we were talking about that extra commission thing?
Sure.
So do we have to, in order to be perfectly legal and proper, do we have to tie this something back to personal to the seller that it has to be sold within this date in order to offer extra commission, or we can simply state that it is going to catch a lot of attention from the agent, so definitely you will have an extra advantage in terms of selling the property on time?
Okay, Kyle, as broker of record, what are you comfortable with?
Oh, sorry, I was typing back to Anahita messages there. What was that again? Sorry.
So Kyle, so Vivek, so my question is that in order to offer an extra commission of 3.5% to the cooperating brokerage, do we have to tie this back to something personal in order, or like a selling date or something, or we can simply offer this extra commission in order to catch attention from all the cooperating brokerage?
Yeah, there's definitely no laws against any commission you want to charge. There's no set fee. There's no, like 5% is just a recommendation, and that's kind of what everybody does, 2.5 to each, but you can do less or you can do more. But I definitely recommend for the cooperating side, never discount that, because that puts you at a severe disadvantage. If you increase that, it puts you at an advantage. So if there's like 5 houses all for sale on the same street and you want to know how to be different, you can increase it to 3% or 3.5 even to the co-op commission. That's a good strategy. And you could put a date to be sold by, so that way, if there's no issues with any other agents trying to say that you're trying to outcompete by giving immoral increases, you just put a date, like Michael was saying.
I think he's
part compulsory, or
sorry?
Is that putting a date is like a mandatory thing, or we can, is not something required?
Mandatory. No. Your seller's allowed to charge to offer any commission that they like. It's just that if you go lower than the average, it puts you at a severe disadvantage.
But I think he was also asking whether, if you're going to give a deadline for the bonus, do you share that piece of information with your client, the seller, about the deadline?
Well, yeah, they'd be deciding on it. You'd have to have it all signed in the commission agreement, right?
Yeah, but also I would encourage that you be very clear with your client, the seller, exactly the parameters and why you're doing it. You say it's a call to action. We're compelling the buyer agents to take action in a timely manner. That's why we're giving them a deadline to work with.
Right. Yeah, and that'd be an easier sell to them too on why they should increase the price, or I mean the commission to the co-op, because then you could say that it's going to convince the property to sell quicker, which I'm sure they would like.
Tying back to the fundamentals of what we're trying to accomplish in the first place.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions though? It's pretty rare when we're together like this. I'll be glad to answer your question. If anything is nagging at you with your current efforts, I'll be glad to give you a so-called expert opinion.
Yeah, you're welcome to ask anything on any topic. Anahita was asking, would you please say the number of immigrants entering to Canada? I believe their plan is 400,000 per year to Canada, which most of them move to the GTA. But yeah, 400,000, I believe. I don't know the exact numbers. Whether they achieve it or not, but it seems like they are.
Yeah, there are too many positive factors about Toronto to ignore. It's really desirable for most people wanting to move and start a new life. Toronto is really at the top of the list.
Yeah. And that's showing up also in the rental report. It is at a lifetime high.
Yeah, exactly. So as rents go up, then that means condo prices could start to rise too.
But there's an example right there. For many years, we didn't see any new rental buildings going up because of the cap. But ever since they lifted the cap, and starting about 5 years ago, all through central Toronto, you saw these brand new luxury condo-like buildings going up with rather expensive rents per month. Those investors knew full well, looking at the long term for the demographics, that there would be a market of demand for it.
Right.
I have a question regarding the new rules for foreign buyers, and also I was wondering, because I know that on 2023 for 2 years buying would be stopped for the foreign people, but about the students who were 2 years full-time student, or who is that has work permission for 2 years working as a full-time in Canada, and they are not immigrant, they are like calculating as a foreign person. Are they going under the same umbrella, or they have different rules compared to like foreign on 2023?
What do you think?
In terms of mortgages, I think maybe that would be a better question for one of our partners, mortgage broker partners, or our partners at National Bank, because they would know the rules on that.
Also, a good tax accountant, just to know all the latest implications. I don't want us to misspeak on this, but possibly after today, Kyle, if you check with our partners, either for the mortgage implications or what the latest is for the government rules for anything being charged for percentages for anybody in this category.
Yes, but just permission to buy a house or property, doesn't matter, condo or house. My question was about the permission, but because on 2023, foreign people does not have permission to buy a property in Canada up to 2 years. And after 2 years, they will decide how to continue, if they allow them or not to allow them. But my question was, who that is a student or has work permission in Canada, and before they could buy something, after they are here 2 years full-time, busy with whatever they're doing here, and they would not pay that 20% or 15% foreign tax, and they can buy anything they want, and they have to live in there. But recently there is a new rules that foreign people are not allowed to buy. Doesn't matter if this is my question, if these foreign people are just the visitors, or included the foreign people who are a student or who has permit to work in Canada. Are these 3 different category, or is all of them are under one umbrella? This is my question. I want to know who I am working right now with them. One of them is a student, another is work permit, and we are waiting for finishing that 2 years like limit they ask for, and we go buy something for them, right? But as they announced, since 2023, foreign people are not allowed to buy.
So Anahita, thanks for the question. It's a good question. The first thing you want to do is, if they're buying full cash, then, and most people are not buying a house like 100% cash, the first thing you're going to need to do is have them get approved for a mortgage. So the first person, before you start showing them houses, of course, make sure that they can afford it. And, so the first person you want to talk to is our partners, with our mortgage broker partners, and our partners with National Bank, because you'll get a commission on those mortgages as well. You can send them to anyone. If they want to go with their own bank, that's fine, but I would encourage them to work with our partners if you can, because you'll make extra money, a few thousand extra, so why not? And they're the best professionals. I've worked with them personally, so
they would have the answer on that question.
Exactly, yeah. And then if they're buying cash and you're worried about the legalities, it's best to talk to a lawyer or an accountant, or both. That's what I would refer them to. We can't answer like legal and tax questions really as realtors. If we do, we can get ourselves into trouble. So we can give a little bit of advice, but we always have to refer them to the legal and the accounting professionals, so that we don't have liability on ourselves.
Okay. Are we going to have any like a Zoom meeting with a lawyer or someone who can ask this kind of question in future, or not? Please.
No, you'd have to talk, like for the specific situation of your client, they're best to contact the professional. So they can be, like, because we can't just give general advice. Everyone's situation is very, very different, especially their financial situations.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And you can email me a personal question too if you have some details that you want me to help you out with. Okay, so Eden was asking, can a refugee buy? They have a down payment but still waiting for the permanent residency. Do they have to pay foreign tax? So once again, I can't really answer the foreign tax questions. They would have to speak to a lawyer and an accountant on those situations. Everyone's situation is a little different. And permanent residency. So like, if they're gonna buy, always just refer them to our mortgage partners first. That's the first step. And then once they get approved for at least a pre-approval, you can talk to the mortgage professional yourself too, and be in good contact with them. And then then you know exactly what price you can show them and everything as well. So no matter what market it is or whatever laws change, it's always the first step anyways to get them approved, so that if you're showing them $800,000 houses and later on they only approve for 600, you have to start from scratch. It's gonna be very difficult because they're seeing better properties. So always start with the mortgage approval. And we have our two different options. We have a broker who has access to like 50 different lenders in Ontario if they need specific types of B lenders and stuff like that. Their credit's not perfect. And then we also have our partner at National Bank, who pays 0.5% commission on whatever the mortgage amount is directly to the brokerage, which we pay to you guys. So I'd encourage talking to them first. That's the first step, and then might as well make extra commission on it.
See, the reason that Kyle and I are encouraging you to talk to the lawyer or an accountant is that even though Kyle and I have a good fundamental working knowledge of the basic parameters of this, these individuals, the mortgage people or the accountants, would have the latest bulletins of exactly any new wrinkles that we might not be privy to. So depending on the exact circumstance, it's better if you ask one of these experts, giving them the exact details of your particular client, and they can give you a more fulsome answer. Yeah,
exactly. And their situation might be something specific, might be different. So I don't want to give general advice. Also, so Eden asked, how much money do they need to enter Canada? I'm not sure. They'd have to talk to an immigration lawyer on that one. And 400K, I meant 400,000 immigrants is their policy for immigration in Canada. So they're hoping to get at least 400,000 immigrants each year that are entering Canada. Not $400,000 income, it's 400,000 actual people coming to Canada. But in terms of immigration law, you best be talking to an immigration lawyer on that.
Now, on a different point, here we are in July. We have a quieter or a slower market. I'd like to leave you with one constructive piece of advice: is that when things are slower, it's all the more reason to go back to the fundamentals of, you all have a host of systems that you're employing. Whether it's contact management, keeping in touch with clientele, sending out marketing pieces, social media campaigns. But if you have a cross section of systems, the critical part, the other half of it, is that you must be consistent on implementing the systems. So you, being a sole practitioner under the auspices of this wonderful brokerage, you have the luxury of picking which systems you want to cultivate. But I've got to caution you, even veteran good agents tend to be sloppy or remiss on being consistent with implementing their systems. They tend to be sporadic and hit and miss. So please, if you are going to cherry pick a cross section of systems that serves you well, it's of paramount importance that you are consistent on it. Even if you don't see much happening right now with the slower market, all the reason to stay the course, keep the consistency there for your systems, and that will keep you plugged into any possible lead generation for when things start to pick up a bit.
Yeah, exactly. One more question here. How do you see the fall market for 2022?
Well, only a fool would try to predict the future, but I would think that, let's put it this way. Before they're finished, Bank of Canada, heaven forbid, but they might still have another little rate hike. Possibly they've learned their lesson, but they could pump it up again a bit more come the fall. Yeah. So we're in rather challenging waters or murky waters as to options. But my best piece of advice is that even in those circumstances, you're going to have a percentage of the population that is still motivated to want to take action during this time. The challenge for you is finding them. Okay, so it's not going to be as popular as it was for everybody wanting to be in love with real estate and take action on it, but there's still going to be a sizable percentage or fraction of the public, even with mortgage rates being what they are going to feel strongly compelled to want to take action, either buying or selling. For example, look at, for listings, think of all the demographic out there of people at an age or stage in life where they've always wanted to cash out. Well, they might think that now if the market's going to become diminished and start to slide a bit, a lot of people of an older age group may want to liquidate and get their nest egg out in the near future before their perception comes true of they thinking is going to slide downward. So if you can target anybody in that demographic and see if they're tempted to take advantage of current market conditions, they may want to liquidate in the near future and possibly fall.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a book on this, on the markets changing, called Shift, and it's I think it's by Gary Keller.
Yeah, it's a good book. Yeah.
Do you, given the current economy and inflation, do you see any chances of interest rate going in double digits like it was in the 80s or 90s?
It's always a chance, but nobody knows what they're going to do. You know?
Yeah, being a betting man, best guess, I would be surprised if that happened. If we're in around 5, 6, up to 7%, but I don't know if it would have to be something catastrophic to get into double-digit inflation. I don't. It'd be quite shocking if that came about.
Yeah, exactly. It would just crush all the markets. So I don't think they'd be able to, but you never know. You never know what could happen.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in terms of real estate prices and everything, it's supply versus demand is probably the biggest factor. That's why I kept talking about immigration. There's a lot of immigrants coming to Canada, and that's expected to continue. So that's excellent. And then interest rates is the other big factor, and we just have to wait to see what they do.
And what about social media? Anyone tuning in today, how's it going with your social media campaign? Are you getting a half decent lead generation, or is a lot of dead wood leads? Are you finding any qualified, bona fide leads coming your way?
On ours that we had going? You mean the brokerage?
No, I'm talking about the individuals watching right now.
Oh.
If they have their own social campaigns, social media campaigns, I get mixed signals from people as to they spend a sizable amount of money to get leads from social media, and you have to do a lot of sifting through and to qualify the good ones, because there's a lot of sloppy leads there, but you have to get quite a few in the door to get some half decent ones.
Mm-hmm. Kathy said she's getting mostly seller leads right now.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, those are the best leads usually. This market is a little more tough, but sellers, it's like you have direct contract to sell that, put that on MLS, so you have more control over that lead than you do with a buyer lead who might see 20 properties and then decide not to buy. The seller.
Well, and I see the comment that just popped up. Somebody's going to be getting a listing, but they're afraid it might not sell. May we ask why? Why do you think it might not sell?
Sorry, I thought maybe I better to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Because I did the comparable analysis, and I realized that there are over like 12 houses still sitting in the market, and the seller is a little bit unreasonable, and if they think that they can sell the price that they want. So I'm getting the listing, and I actually took the seller and showed all the houses in the market that they are still sitting in the market, and showed them that some of them are even has better features than his house. But he said, no, my luck, I have a good luck, this, that. I said, okay, no problem. Actually, they signed the listing today. So yeah, I'm going to spend over $1,000 for maybe, marketing and flyers and pictures, photographing and all. But my gut is saying it's going to stay in the market and not going to sell.
Okay, I have two questions for you. how motivated are they to sell? Their motivation, is it strong?
Yeah, I actually find out that they didn't tell me, but because I talk and ask a lot of questions in my listing presentation, so I found out that they might go into financial situation, but they didn't tell me. And I found it that they're very motivated, but I don't know what will happen. So
Oh, okay, my second question is, you shared with us that you showed them the comparables. Did you show them on a computer screen, or did you actually book the appointment and take them through physically through the competition?
I sent them the comparable analysis that during last month, because the market is changing every month right now. And I even showed them the termination listings. I showed them the expiration listings, and I took them to the current listings that are not selling, and they're staying in the market for 2 months. So
You took them through them. You took them through it physically.
yeah, physically.
Okay. Okay. Good. That's known as a live CMA, everyone, where instead of showing them on a printout, you actually book an appointment and take your seller through the competition. And when they see a property that's nicer for them for features and asking less money, it's a great way to take the wind out of their sails for their stubbornness.
But actually, those showings and convince them to reduce the price by 50,000. They're
Okay.
among something else, but still, I think it's highest. I don't know what will happen.
Well, if the other ones are not selling, you're gonna have to go under those prices, right? So that's the,
I tried my best to make it lower than other houses, but the way that I'm seeing going, I think the whole market is going down, and I just took this listing for my marketing, for my personal marketing, for my own business, to start doing a lot of like sending flyers. And I'm just predicting maybe in future I get, when market is getting better, I can compensate in future, but I'm sure this listing is gonna be my loss. Anyhow.
Well, here's another suggestion though. The challenge is, if you have a good rapport with these clients, at the right moment, you can point out that by being out on MLS at the current price, all they're really achieving is helping the other properties, their competitors, sell, because those other agents are showing their property and saying, well, they're asking that much. Isn't this other one here for less money? See how attractive it is. So them out at their asking price is just helping sell their competition.
That's true. Yeah, I know. I told them the price right now is not bad. It's not gonna help the competition, that's for sure. I let them know and they realized, but still I think it's high. So this is my personal assumption, according to the search that I'm doing every day in that area. And it might sell, I don't know, but not even a single house sold last 2 weeks in that area. So let's see how it goes.
Well, there's a lull right now. You just got the listing, so the first 2 weeks will be very interesting to see the reaction. Be sure to, in addition to putting on MLS, be sure to send the virtual tour to all the other agents in the area that have current listings, target them and send them the visual campaign of how attractive your property is.
Sure, yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
yeah. So thanks everybody for your questions. Yeah, it does look like it's switching over to a buyer's market right now. So you might want to take a look at that book Shift. It's interesting, and it'll tell you some strategies.
And speaking of books, I'm talking to Toronto Real Estate Board, and finally, after being shut for the last 2 years, they've booked me for the fall. I'll be teaching live and in person in the fall at the Toronto Real Estate Board, but they're opening up again. So if any of you are interested, my book is available at the Realtor store at Treb, or you can order it online and through e-commerce. It's all on language and objection handling, called Dialogues to Success. So you might want to consider investing in your future.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a great book. I have it as well. I had it many years ago. Highly recommended.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. I enjoyed our chat today. Best wishes and good hunting, and we'll talk to you at the next session.
Yeah. Oh, and also just to remind everyone, we have our listing and buyer presentations available in the link. Email me if you need the link. I don't want to say it because we're going to probably put this on YouTube. It's just for our agents, but we have the listing and buyer presentations, a lot of other marketing materials for free that we've spent a lot of time on. So take advantage of those as well. Okay, take care, everyone.
Yeah, best wishes. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Michael. Bye-bye.
Okay.